It was a quiet evening when the phone rang, cutting through the soft hum of the living room. Clara barely recognized the number at first. A strange mix of curiosity and concern filled her chest as she picked up. On the other end, it was her husband's younger brother, Michael. His voice sounded unusually tense, weighed down with a heaviness Clara hadn't heard before. "Clara, can we talk?" he asked, his voice breaking just enough to make her heart squeeze. She glanced at her husband, David, who was reading quietly on the couch. He looked up, raising a brow, sensing the shift in mood. Clara nodded, telling Michael to come over. She had a feeling this wasn't going to be a casual visit. By the time Michael arrived, night had settled in like a soft blanket over the neighborhood. He was usually upbeat, joking, and full of energy. Tonight, though, he was quiet, fidgeting with his hands in a way that made Clara's stomach twist. She guided him to the living room and offered him tea. He accepted, his hands trembling slightly as he held the warm cup. "I don't really know where to start," Michael admitted, staring down at the floor. Clara leaned forward, her eyes gentle but attentive. "Just start anywhere, Michael. I'm listening." And that's when he did. He spoke of the pressure he had been carrying at work, the loneliness he hadn't admitted to anyone, and the fear that he was failing in ways that mattered to him most.
Clara listened, letting the words fall into the quiet room, absorbing the weight of them. She noticed a shadow behind his usual confident demeanor, a man who was desperately searching for guidance. David watched silently from his chair, giving Clara a subtle nod of support. He trusted her instincts completely. Over the next hour, Clara helped Michael untangle his thoughts. She asked the right questions, not invasive, just enough to help him speak freely. With each sentence he shared, Clara sensed the fragile vulnerability hiding behind his humor and casual smiles. "I feel like I'm letting everyone down," Michael confessed finally, his voice almost a whisper. Clara's heart ached. She reached out, resting her hand on his, a gesture simple but full of reassurance. "You're not alone, Michael," she said softly. "We'll get through this together." There was a long pause, and then Michael looked up at her, eyes glistening. It was the first time she had seen him truly unguarded, not the polished brother or the successful young man everyone admired. Tonight, he was just a man who needed real support, someone willing to listen and stand beside him without judgment. As the evening deepened, they moved to the couch, the three of them sitting quietly. David finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. "We've got you, Mike. Whatever it is, we face it together." Michael nodded, relief washing over him in waves. Clara knew this was the beginning of something important, a moment where family became more than just shared blood. It was about care, understanding, and being present when it truly mattered. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. As the clock ticked past 10:30, Michael's shoulders relaxed just slightly, but Clara could still feel the tension lingering, like a fragile thread waiting to snap or strengthen. She knew this was just the start. There was more he needed to reveal, more layers to his worry that hadn't yet come to light. And deep down, she felt an unshakable certainty. Tonight would change the way they all connected forever. The night stretched on, but Michael still seemed hesitant to fully open up. Clara could sense that there were things he wasn't saying, pieces of his struggle that were tucked away behind practiced smiles. She leaned closer, her voice gentle. "Michael, you don't have to hide anything from us. Whatever it is, we can face it together." He swallowed hard, staring at the carpet as if the answer might be hiding there. Finally, he let out a shaky breath. "It's not just work. It's everything," he admitted. "I feel stuck. Like no matter what I do, I'm running in circles, letting people down, including David." Clara nodded, understanding instantly. Sometimes the pressure of expectations, from family, from society, even from oneself, can feel heavier than a mountain. "I get it," she said softly. "It's okay to feel like that. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Michael's eyes flicked to David, who offered a small, reassuring smile. There was no judgment there, only a steady presence that made Michael's chest ache with gratitude. He had been so used to keeping up appearances, hiding his doubts behind jokes and confidence. that the relief of being accepted in his vulnerable state was almost overwhelming. They talked for hours, sharing small confessions, quiet fears, and moments of frustration. Clara noticed the subtle changes in him, the way his shoulders slowly dropped, how his voice grew steadier, how the tension in his eyes softened. She knew that sometimes just being heard was enough to spark a flicker of hope. This was why she had always believed in listening first and judging last. People carried invisible battles, and often the smallest gestures, like staying, like truly listening, could make the difference between hope and despair. As the night wore on, the three of them shared memories and stories that were long forgotten, laughter sneaking in between the heavy moments. It was grounding, a reminder that life wasn't just about struggles. It was about connections, care, and the small joys that could pierce even the darkest clouds. But as midnight approached, Clara noticed a shadow cross Michael's face, a hesitation that hadn't fully lifted. "There's something else," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Something I haven't told anyone, and it's complicated." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the tension coil again, delicate but undeniable. She leaned forward, her hand lightly brushing his. "Whenever you're ready, Michael, we'll hear it. No rush, no judgment." He nodded, but the tightness in his jaw told her that what he was holding back was important. It wasn't just a small worry. This was something that could change everything if left unspoken. And Clara knew that when Michael finally shared it, their family would face a choice: let fear control them, or rise together, stronger than ever. Morning light crept softly through the curtains, spilling across the living room where Clara and Michael sat in quiet reflection. David had stepped into the kitchen to make coffee, leaving them alone for a moment, and Clara could sense Michael's thoughts drifting toward the confession he had been holding back. Finally, he spoke, his voice low but steady. "Clara, there's something I've been hiding for a long time, something I'm afraid will change how everyone sees me." He paused, glancing toward the doorway where David stood, sipping his coffee, giving them space. "It's about choices I made, things I regret." Clara nodded, her expression calm, inviting him to continue. "Michael," she said softly, "we're not here to judge. We're here to understand. Whatever it is, it won't change the fact that we care about you." He took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the floor, as if summoning courage from the very air around him. "I've been so focused on trying to be perfect," he admitted, "that I forgot what really matters. I pushed people away, friends, colleagues, even family, because I thought I had to handle everything on my own. I didn't realize how lonely I was until it almost became too much." Clara reached out, placing a reassuring hand over his. "Michael, it's okay. Admitting that takes more strength than most people can muster. You're not alone in this anymore." He looked up, eyes glistening with unshed tears, and for a moment the walls he had built around himself seemed to crumble. "I was afraid," he whispered, "afraid that if I admitted how lost I felt, I'd be seen as weak, or that people would stop caring." Clara shook her head gently. "Vulnerability isn't weakness, Michael. It's honesty. And honesty is what makes connections real." There was a long pause as he absorbed her words, letting the truth sink in. Clara could feel the tension in him slowly loosening, like the first release of air after being underwater too long. "I don't want to feel like this anymore," he said finally. "I want to start over, but I don't know how." Clara smiled softly. "You start by accepting support, by letting people in. You don't have to fix everything all at once, one step at a time." At that moment, David returned, sitting beside them. He placed a hand on Michael's shoulder, grounding him. "We'll face this together, Mike. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just us, as a family." Michael nodded, a fragile smile breaking through for the first time in days. They spent the morning talking, planning, and even laughing a little. Michael shared stories he had never mentioned before, small victories and hidden dreams, and Clara could see the weight lifting from him, replaced by a cautious but growing hope. Yet beneath the relief, Clara sensed that not everything had been revealed. There was still a deeper struggle, one that Michael hadn't dared voice. And though he had taken the first step toward healing, She knew the next part of his journey would test their patience, their empathy, and their unwavering support. As noon approached, Michael excused himself for a walk, needing time to process what had been shared. Clara and David watched him go, the quiet hum of the house echoing the new but delicate hope that had begun to bloom. They understood that this was only the beginning, a turning point that could reshape not just Michael's life, but the way they all connected as a family. But as the door closed behind him, Clara's heart tightened slightly. There was a shadow in his stride, subtle but undeniable. Something still lingered in the corners of his mind, a fear or regret that hadn't been fully spoken aloud. And Clara knew that until that truth came to the surface, the tension would never fully lift. The afternoon sun cast warm streaks across the living room, but Michael's mood remained clouded. Clara could feel it the moment he returned from his walk. His steps were heavier, slower, like he was carrying something he hadn't yet shared. She met his eyes and gave a small, encouraging smile. "Want to talk about it?" she asked gently. Michael hesitated, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit Clara had noticed before. I'm scared," he admitted quietly. "Scared that even after opening up, some things are too much to fix, that maybe I've gone too far this time." Clara leaned closer, her voice steady.
Michael, whatever it is, it's never too much to face. You're not alone. We'll help you carry it, one step at a time. He took a deep breath, and finally the words spilled out. "It's about my decisions over the last year. I made choices at work, with friends, even personal relationships that hurt people, and I've been trying to ignore the consequences, hoping they'd disappear. But they haven't, and I can't stop thinking about the people I've let down." David, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. His tone was calm, but full of sincerity. "Mike, the past can't be erased, but it can teach us, and it doesn't define you. What matters is how you move forward from here." Clara nodded. "You've already started that by opening up tonight. Facing the truth is the hardest part. Now we can help you figure out the next steps together." Michael's shoulders slumped slightly, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over him. "I didn't realize how alone I felt until now," he admitted. "I was so caught up in pretending everything was fine that I forgot how much I needed this." He gestured vaguely between Clara and David. "Family, support, people who actually care." Clara reached for his hand, holding it firmly. "You're not alone anymore, not ever. We'll face this storm together, and I promise it won't break us. It will make us stronger." For a moment, the room fell silent, filled with a quiet understanding. Michael's eyes glistened, and Clara could see the first real signs of hope peeking through the worry and guilt. He had started the journey of confronting his mistakes and fears, and the hardest part, admitting them, was already behind him. But Clara knew the road ahead would be challenging. Healing wasn't a straight path. There would be moments of doubt, setbacks, and maybe even frustration. Yet she also knew that with patience, love, and consistent support, Michael could rebuild not only his confidence, but his trust in himself and others. Later that evening, they sat together, talking through small steps Michael could take to begin making amends and regaining balance in his life. Clara suggested writing down his feelings, planning conversations with people he had hurt, and setting realistic goals for work and personal growth. David added practical advice, emphasizing that progress, not perfection, was what mattered. As the night deepened, Michael leaned back, exhaustion mingling with a sense of relief. He had started to confront the hidden storm inside him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had a lifeline. Clara and David's unwavering presence had reminded him that admitting vulnerability didn't make him weak, it made him human. But as they prepared to call it a night, Michael's phone buzzed softly on the table. He glanced at it, and the faintest shadow crossed his face. Clara noticed immediately. She didn't know who it was, or what new challenge it might bring, but instinctively, she knew this wasn't over. The storm he had been carrying wasn't fully dissipated, and a new wave of uncertainty was just around the corner. The next morning brought a quiet calm, a contrast to the emotional turbulence of the previous night. Michael sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee, lost in thought. Clara joined him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Morning," she said softly. "How are you feeling?"
He gave a small, almost shy smile. Better, he admitted. Still nervous, but lighter. I feel like I can breathe a little again. Clara nodded, sensing the subtle shift in him. It was the first true sign of hope she had seen in days, a fragile but steady spark. David joined them, carrying his own cup of coffee, and sat across from Michael. "Remember," he said warmly, "we're in this together. Whatever comes next, you don't have to face it alone." Michael nodded, absorbing the weight of their words. It was one thing to say it last night in a moment of emotion, but another entirely to live it in the light of a new day. Over the next few hours, they discussed practical steps, small actions Michael could take to begin rebuilding confidence and trust, writing letters of apology where needed, setting clearer boundaries at work, even carving out time for himself to reflect and rest. Clara could see the relief in Michael's expression as he realized that change didn't have to happen all at once. It could start slowly, steadily, with intention. But the most important moment came when Michael spoke from the heart. "I think I've been afraid to show people the real me, afraid that my mistakes define me. But being here with you both, I see now that it's not about being perfect. It's about being honest and letting people in when it counts." Clara smiled, feeling a swell of pride and affection. "Exactly," she said softly. "The people who care will see the real you, and they'll love you through it." David reached out, resting a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. "And we will, every step of the way." By the afternoon, a quiet energy had returned to their home. Laughter peeked through moments of reflection, and Michael even shared a few jokes, his familiar humor returning naturally. It wasn't that all problems had vanished, they hadn't, but the heavy weight that had pressed on him for so long felt lighter. He had begun to face the storm inside, and for the first time in months, he could see a path forward. Later, as the three of them sat together in the living room, Clara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Sometimes life's toughest moments didn't require grand gestures or dramatic solutions. They required presence, patience, and love. And tonight, Michael had felt all three, in a way that would stay with him long after this day. Before Michael left that evening, he turned to Clara and David, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for listening, for caring, for staying. I don't know how I could have done this without you." David smiled warmly. "That's what family does, Mike. We lift each other up, especially when things feel impossible." Clara squeezed his hand, feeling the quiet beauty of the moment. Michael had started a journey, not just of healing, but of rediscovering the trust and love that had always been there, waiting for him to accept it. As he stepped out into the night, a soft breeze brushing against his face, Michael felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in months. There would still be challenges, still moments of doubt, but he had the courage now to face them, and more importantly, he knew he would never face them alone. Clara watched him go, a gentle smile on her lips, feeling the warmth of a heart that had opened, a bond that had strengthened, and the quiet promise of brighter days ahead. The storm had passed, not erased, but transformed into a newfound strength that would carry them all forward. And in that soft golden light of evening, the family sat together, knowing that support, understanding, and love were the most powerful forces of all, enough to heal even the heaviest hearts.